time to make up some new bedding for my worms, because I'm taking the bedding that they've used up and mixing the worm castings with some potting soil so that I can be potting up some starts. So this is, just material that comes, packaging material that comes to me sometimes, with some peat moss and some rainwater. And let's see if you can see, it's still a little bit wet here. When I get this to the right consistency, which will be kind of like a wrung out sponge as far as moisture, that's when I can go ahead and put the worms into their new bedding. So maybe y'all can see, depending on what device you're watching this video, these small amber colored bead shaped objects. Those are the worm eggs, which I do not want to lose. It's important to get them collected. I'm going to dump this bedding with the worms, which are, if I dig around in here, they're down in there. I'm going to dump this out on this big sheet of cardboard. Then I will wash this worm bin out. I will go ahead at this point and put the fresh bedding in, which is now still a little bit wet, but it's still absorbing. So by the time I get done sorting the worms and the eggs out, this will probably be perfect. This bedding will go into the bin and we're ready to start again. And then the worm compost, castings, whatever you choose to call it, I will be adding that to the bucket of compost that I collected the last time, and then I'll be mixing that with some potting soil and some other supportive nutrients for the transplants, and I'll show you that in the next part of the video. Okay, so I just dumped this out and you can see the worms are moving around, and I'm just getting them and dropping them into the new bedding. I think they're going to be happy. There's going to be plenty for them to eat, and I will make a I'll juice some carrots and celery and apples and stuff for myself, and I'll give them the pulp to welcome them into their new habitat. And this is a perfect day to do this. It's sunny and a little bit warmer today, so they immediately try to go to the bottom of the pile, which then makes it easier for me to get in there and get them and put them back in their bedding. I'll just break that up so they can be distributed. And I'll probably add a second layer of the cut up cardboard packing material on top of this, and a little bit more peat moss. Also, I mixed into here a little bit of clay, and I'll show you that in just a moment. And I also mixed in some granite dust, because worms, similar to birds, have what's known as a crop, and in that crop they have grit, and that's what helps them break up, instead of having, like teeth on their digestive tract, they have this containment area which has grit in it, and that's what helps them digest the food that they're eating. So I'm providing them the grit that they need in order to be able to eat and be healthy. And it looks like they've been quite happy in here because of all the egg cases. Okay, so I think I've got the majority of them. I'm still going through the material, and I'll go a little bit further because there's some really, really tiny ones in here, and I'm just putting them in with the material. I'm just throwing it on top of the bedding. Like I say, I'll put another layer of bedding on here so they'll have plenty of material to hide out in. And in the other bin, you can see the pile there, just scooping up as many of the egg cases as possible. And don't worry, I'm not going to make any sauerkraut until my hands are really clean and I cut my nails again, so no worries. Alrighty, got the shredded cardboard and a little bit of peat moss moistened up. Here's the granite dust I was talking about. So I'm just going to sprinkle some of that. I mean, it's so fine. It's almost like, well, it's dust, of course. And there's the clay. Get that here so you can see. I'll just throw a little of that in there. And I also have some of the azomite. I'll just mix that in there and then just mix all of that together. get it well blended, and then I will set this on top of the worm bin. And I'm gonna save out just a little bit of this because I'll show you what I'm gonna do with that. But the majority of it's gonna go in this bin, so hold on. Now, if you didn't have cardboard or, you know, want to spend a lot of time cutting up cardboard shreds, you can also use newspaper. And you don't have to use peat moss. Of course, I've had this bag of peat moss for like the last 10 years because I just use it sparingly when I'm making the worm bin stuff. But you could also use that coconut coir stuff. That would be fine. Okay, so that the little worms are all covered over now. And I'm going to go ahead and put this collection of eggs on top of here with some of the last of the potato peelings that were there. And then I'm going to take some of this, the eggs that are mixed in that, I'm going to put them in here, and I'm going to surprise one of my friends. She's been wanting to get a worm composting bin started, and this is the ideal way, is to just give her some of the eggs, and she can create the habitat for them there, and they'll get started in her kitchen, or I don't know, wherever she's going to have them. Okay. Whenever I'm doing this task, the movie 7 Years in Tibet comes to mind. And I remember that scene where they're going to build a movie theater and the monks are out there praying and looking for the earthworms in the ground before they start digging and disturbing everything. And he's wondering why it's taking so long. And then they bring him out there and he sees what's going on and can't believe it. Sentient life, all of it. All of it is holy. All of it is sacred. All right, well, this is the worm bin part. The next video, I'll show you what I'm doing with these worm castings.